order. And the next item of business will be a roll call of the members.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Here.
Commissioner Capitan.
Here.
Commissioner Breitling.
Here.
Commissioner Vettel.
Here.
Commissioner Flacco.
Present.
All present. Commissioner Capitan, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we'll have approved minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved as a second. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we'll have approval of the order of agenda.
Flacco moves to approval. Capitan second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next up, we will have, look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, we'll have Taylor take the roll call vote.
Commissioner Capitan.
Aye.
Commissioner Vettel.
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco.
Aye.
Commissioner Breitling.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, anyone would like to provide public comment? Anyone in the audience would like to provide public comment or online? Once, going twice. Okay, we'll then move to the regular agenda. Item 1, Fargo, West Fargo Inmate Housing Contract. Sheriff Johnner and Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, I'll just make a couple of very quick comments before Sheriff Johnner jumps into the bulk of the presentation. Just want to let the board and the public know that our office has worked very closely with Sheriff's Office, the State's Attorney's Office, and there's a lot of effort that's gone into the draft agreements that you see before you. Appreciate the coordination and the cooperation among our offices and the dialogue that we've had with our other local government partners. So there's just know that there's a lot of effort and a lot of time that's gone into what's being presented to you and what you may choose to consider this afternoon.
So noted, Mr. Wilson. Great effort by everyone involved. Sheriff, you got the podium.
All right, Mr. Chair and members of the board, thanks for allowing me a few minutes this afternoon to visit with you about the jail contract. Robert, thanks for the introduction. What Robert had mentioned is most definitely true. It's this has been a long process, kind of exhausting to be exact. Both not only for myself, but some of our leadership team here. And what I'd kind of like to do is just start off with the history of this and kind of work up to where we are now. I think that's important to kind of give you a timeline and then also show you things along the way here. So I'm going to guess that everyone's had an opportunity to read Mr. Wilson's memo. Is that correct at this point? Okay. All right. So just kind of going back for the reasons for negotiations I handed you guys all a packet. And so as I go through the timeline here, there's a number on each of the sheets that I gave you. So I'll refer to them as 1, 2, and those are the items I'm talking about as we move forward through there. So the reason for the contract negotiations was a couple, or the start of a new contract. Basically, as we were looking to expand, there were some conversations by some previous commissioners and some of the commissioners that are currently still here on looking forward to entering into contracts with not only the city but also our federal partners. And the length of those discussions always ended at the reason we couldn't come up with a new contract with our federal partners is because we wanted to wait until we got a newer contract in place with our city partners, because typically our federal partners will look at the current contracts that we have in place with our cities, and that's what they usually follow. We hadn't entered into a contract with the city of Fargo since 2008. And so our rates were still $85 a day. And so through that discussion, that led, and if you look at item number 1, that gives you the preview of that contract from 2008. That's that first slip that I gave you. Captain Frobig was then asked by the commission at the time to do a study on what it costs to house an inmate in the Cass County Jail based on inflation, operational costs, and things of that nature. And that is the item number 2 that's presented in your packet. And that number 2 was offered to the commissioners at the time so they could make an assessment on what our operational costs were at the jail. And then hopefully make a decision on whether they wanted to keep that rate at $85 or move it up to $120. So then we go to item number 3, or handout number 3 there that I gave you, and the commission voted on June 19th. I gave you the commission minutes there. They voted on June 19th to raise the daily rate at the Cass County Jail to $120 based on the study that Captain Frobig had done and what we felt we would need to basically break even on a day-to-day basis with housing an inmate at the Cass County Jail. On July 19th, which is going to be item number 4, I drafted a letter to all of our area law enforcement leaders, and that was drafted on July 19th, 2023. So we're almost 2 years into this thing. I sent that to the area leaders, and I just advised them so they could start looking at their budget and preparing their budgets, that the commissioners had voted to raise that daily rate to $120 so that when as they were preparing their budgets, they weren't caught off guard and they could make the appropriate accommodations to afford that $120 per inmate. We then drafted a contract, and that we felt was reasonable, and we worked with our policy. That worked within our policy, our procedures, state and federal law. We worked together with the state's attorney's office. Much appreciated their work. Kate's been a big player in that, and State's Attorney Hegvig and Mr. Wilson. And we drafted up a contract that we felt was appropriate and kind of mimicked those contracts that we had in the past, but it had obviously the $120 rate in that new contract. Once that information was presented to the city of Fargo, it started some discussions and some current concerns on their part about the rate increase, which ultimately then led to a discussion on the property piece that we had in the contract. They had some concerns about that, and then ITV, and so those things to date, the rate and the property, and what we're talking about with the property is the amount of property that they can bring into our facility, and ITV, and the discussion on the ITV is there's been some discussion by the chief, I think, with his staff, that they may not necessarily feel safe in the jail when they're moving people around to ITV. So a couple things on that. Obviously, the rate was set by the commission. I'm certainly flexible on the rate. I think that should be set by your body here on what that daily rate needs to be. The property is non-negotiable if it falls outside of our policies and procedures of the Cass County Sheriff's Office and what we consider to be the rules of North Dakota Department of Corrections and what is listed in the Century Code. I think Commissioner Vettel will appreciate this. He's definitely got experience with this from his past years in being in law enforcement, but and I think that he would probably think this was a little strange. We've had dressers with clothing brought into the jail. We've had TVs brought into the jail. We've had 2 loaded firearms. We've had an explosive device that we had to have call the bomb squad out and actually disrupt outside the jail, and it was live. We've had several pieces of property that that are just gathered up and brought into our facility. And then it's my role as the Cass County Sheriff to make sure that the Cass County Jail is a safe place to house inmates, to have our employees in there. And with all this property that's being brought in, it's not being searched appropriately. And luckily, our staff, with the policies that we had in place, had these individuals handcuffed and searched through that, so these people didn't have access to live firearms within our booking area. We can't take in all this property and not know that it's not contaminated with different things, and store that back in our evidence room, because if we're all thinking here realistically, if we start to get different things in our property room, different types of insects, bugs, things like that, we would have to have someone come in and fumigate the whole jail. As you could imagine, that would be extensive. And where would we put the inmates while we did that? And what would we do with all this property while we were doing that? I don't know how, I mean, that would be certainly an extreme situation. So our policies I feel are very, are actually a little bit more lax than most of the jails that I've seen. We've researched a number of property policies and exception policies from other agencies, and I feel like our staff has worked very well with the agencies to make some accommodations sometimes that I think I wouldn't have made. In fact, one day when I was in the jail, a huge machete was brought in there, and the officers that brought it in didn't know I was in there, and I asked them what they were going to do with that. And when I asked them that, then they took it back out to their car. You can't have guns and knives and stuff in the jail. It's a controlled facility. So we have to have a property policy in place. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. We have to be able to control that. We don't have the extra room to store things. And so I feel like we were trying to be as accommodating as possible, but yet trying to be as safe as possible and protect the facility and the taxpayers of Cass County if we'd have to fumigate the whole thing. So that has been a sticky point. The other sticking point is the ITV. The city of Fargo, the chief had brought up a concern that you, as officers, I believe, if I remember correctly, would maybe not feel the safest in the facility or moving people around. It's a little confusing for me, but I'm not gonna, I mean, certainly that's certainly entitled to his opinion. The ITV thing for me is really, like I've mentioned this board before, I don't necessarily have a problem taking that on if I can get more staff, but we got to think through this logically, right? This is a city of Fargo court with city of Fargo charges. They're in our facility, and now we're accommodating their court, and we certainly want to work together and be good partners. But I'll need more staff to take on that responsibility. And then we would also have to think of some of the liability with city of Fargo paperwork that our staff would then be enduring for a Fargo court. There could be some potential liability there. So that's maybe something the board would have to discuss here. If everyone remembers correctly, ITV is a convenience. That's not a mandate. It's not something that we have to offer. We do that to try to accommodate and make things easier for the other agencies and try to help with some staffing issues. In the past, the city of Fargo officers would come over and grab their inmates and bring them to the Fargo court room so they could have court there. That would certainly be an option for Fargo. I think that would be more resources for them. But those are really our options, would be for me to gain more people to handle that. We'd have to think about some policies and procedures for liability in order to take that on, or the other option would be that we continue as we are, and then the last option would be that they come over and grab their intakes and bring them over to the city of Fargo court, and we don't offer the ITV. So that's kind of a discussion we got to have today, I think, with all of us, because it's more money if I ask for more people, and that's not in our budget right now. Our budget's complete, but we could add that in there if the board wanted us to do that. And so that's where we're at with that. Moving on here.
Sheriff, I mean, I know exactly what you're speaking of. I think the effort, at least from my view of both agreements, I don't believe that additional staffing, to your point, is a logical step forward, because then we'd have to probably double their fee to pay for the overhead, because we're not going to have that on the taxpayers of Cass County. So I know we've talked about it a few months ago, but I don't see that as a practical solution of adding more staff to accommodate that particular request. I don't know if it was a request or was a notion, but
I think those
clearly
are
the
just our
100
options.
Clearly, the $120 a day will not fly. I think today's focus is obviously where we've reached, agreement with West Fargo and mirror that with the city of Fargo.
Yeah, so my next point was that so that we started talks with West Fargo, which would go to your point, your commission chair, and West Fargo is fine with the contract that we've presented them, and there was some back and forth. We had to change some language, but they're fine. We haven't had any property issues with the city of West Fargo, and we have a good relationship with them. We have a good relationship with Fargo too, but this contract kind of is caused some questions on just procedures, I guess, so to speak. And so the
Commissioner Captain,
Define ITV. Is that the TV where they go before the judge?
Yep, and they do it over the TV, so they go at the jail, they're brought into a room and they interact with the judge over the TV, so.
Sheriff,
Yes.
Commissioner Vettel?
just a couple of questions. One in reference to ITV. In the past, I know they've utilized their own police officers to come over and serve as the holders of those folks during that court. Are they no longer doing that at all?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Vettel, so they are doing that right now. They're currently coming over and running ITV within the jail, which is their Fargo charges. So,
And then the other question would be, was there a change in policy within the Fargo Police Department in reference to bringing property to the jail that caused this issue to come to the forefront?
I don't know. I don't know, as you and I have, obviously, when you were Fargo police officer, I worked with you a lot when I was in the jail, and we never had the property issue before. It just all of a sudden popped up over the last couple of years here. I think some of it has to do with some of the homeless inmates or individuals that they're coming across. But as you can see, my concern would be that disinfecting some of that stuff that comes into the facility, and we might need to do it came into the property room.
And again, I guess it comes down to the fact that what is our level of responsibility as community to reserve and respect that this is their property and secure it for them. Obviously, they're homeless. They aren't securing their property to begin with if they're in an open campsite. And so I guess I don't understand why we feel it would be all right to drag it to another location to secure it, since they didn't have it secured before anyway.
And Commissioner Vettel, so the other thing I was going to bring up is our own deputies don't bring that excess stuff to the jail. They follow the inception policy that we have, and they bring that stuff to the sheriff's office, to our back storage garage, and that's where it goes there. Obviously, that's where we keep it until so our staff doesn't even bring it in to the jail. So anyways, getting on to the West Fargo contract here. So they have theirs on the agenda today. I feel like we are in agreement with West Fargo. And we feel very comfortable with the contract that's been worked out with West Fargo. And so in the opportunity here to offer out an olive branch to everyone, I think that what I would like to see this board do is that we, the contract that's been put in place with the city of West Fargo, that's the contract moving forward, that we honor, obviously, with the different cities. But I would ask that we end the current contract that we have in place right now on December 31st at midnight, and start this new contract that we've got with West Fargo and that we'd want all the cities to use, to begin with that $120 rate, January 1st, 2026. And I think that that is very reasonable because we wanted them to start in July. I know the city of Fargo did have some questions on the rate, and they wanted to see a graduate, but that gives them another 6 months to prepare for that. Doesn't just spring it on, and I think if the board would be willing to do that, I'm okay with that. But that would be the contract that we utilize then starting January 1st, 2026, and then we would notify everyone if they would have to comply, otherwise we wouldn't be able to take their intakes after that date for just city charges.
Commissioner Captain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I went to Rapid City for the WIR conference, and we visited Rapid City's jail, which is double the size that we have, and Rapid City isn't anywhere near the size of Fargo, but their jail is 600 and some beds. I pointedly asked, do you allow personal property come into your inmates' personal property come into the jail? And he looked at me like I had two heads. Of course not. They don't bring anything in except the clothes they're wearing and maybe a cell phone. And I think they even confiscate that. So I would be against any personal property coming into our jail at all. If it's in the contract now, then I'm gonna have to vote against the contract.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Captan know that we feel comfortable with the contract that we have with West Fargo as far as the property is concerned. So I would like to see that contract that we came in agreement with West Fargo Police Department become the contract moving forward. And we feel comfortable that in terms of the property, because it follows our sheriff's office property. It's listed in there.
Just to clarify that, Commissioner Captain, it would not include that, so. to
Yeah,
your
but we
point.
would follow our,
Oh, okay.
so that's what I feel comfortable with, and that's what we would like to do.
And Fargo is, they want to extend it for another 6 months or look at it?
No one's asked that. I was just asking this, I mean, we can make it effective. I personally, as the sheriff, would feel comfortable making the new contract, starting the new contract and the language and everything for the city of Fargo and West Fargo in January. If we decide not to do that and you want it started earlier, then what I would ask the board is to do it in either August or September. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because then our new pod would be done and we wouldn't have to deny anyone access if we get over full, and then we're honoring that contract. But if the board felt comfortable with it, we could give Fargo a little more time for it to get the money, if that's what they feel they needed to.
Well,
If they need any more time myself.
Well, in some regards, Commissioner Captain, I agree, but the sheriff and I visited last week. You know, we're all under budget pressure. This has been lingering for 2 years. Fact of the matter, if it starts first of the year, provides each of the local subdivisions the time to budget for that and not have, you know, to deal with a change in July of this year, for example. They can plan for it. So I think as partners, we're all trying to figure out budgeting in the new normal with property tax caps. This is just another step to provide the time to plan for that, in my opinion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Breitling?
I'm confused. You have a statement from the city of West Fargo stating that the agreement will take place July 1 of 25.
Yep.
Commissioner Breitling, if I may, this is a discussion from when this document came in agreement, and a discussion, frankly, over the weekend, trying to get both parties together. That's why the date is different than what July 1st is in this document. So if the commission today does approve January 1st, then that'll be communicated back in the appropriate documents for signature to the city of West Fargo.
I can add some of that if you want. Mr. Chair and Commissioner Breitling, West Fargo had, because I wrote that letter in 2023, they had started to budget to increase that from 85 to 120. So they feel like they might have enough money to do the 120 starting in July, but I think they'd be appreciative if we could move it to
In
January.
fact, they state in their letter that they've included that in the budget.
Yep, they have.
So it's not a problem for the city of West Fargo.
But I leave it up to this board for what
It's
you
up
guys
to
want to do.
us. I stated my thoughts on it, but it's up to us. I totally understand, Commissioner Breitling, your point, but there have been ongoing conversations in earnest since all last weekend and even over the weekend and as of this morning. Commissioner Flacco.
Mr. Chair and Sheriff Johnner, I'm in the Fargo one, it's example on Appendix A, page 7 of 7, just because that's a common question regarding if there are 5 city charges and 1 state charge. We picked that up, not either city.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Flacco, that is correct. So if the person is arrested for just City of Fargo charges and held at the Cass County Jail, then the City of Fargo pays for that. If same thing for West Fargo. If West Fargo is just West Fargo charges, they pay for that. If the person has a City of Fargo charge and a state charge, then the county takes the whole bill. That's how it works. So it's just when they have city charges and nothing else is when they pay. So.
Commissioner Flacco.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no further questions or comments, I'm ready for a motion. I would move to approve the contract as presented for Fargo, West Fargo and Fargo with an effective date of January 1st, 2026 to allow for administrative implementation.
Second. Sheriff.
I think you said West Fargo and Fargo, so Fargo hasn't agreed to anything yet, so.
Yeah, but we're agreeing to what's been presented.
Yeah, I was thinking that the motion sounds pretty good. I was just thinking that something that would be that the contract that we currently have with West Fargo would become the contract moving forward for all
That would be
cities
the,
wanting to have it.
I believe that's the intent of the motion. Commissioner Flacco, is that?
Yeah.
Commissioner Bettle? Aye. Further discussion? Questions? Pretty clear? Commissioner Breitling, you okay?
I just assume that we're now, but I think we're giving money away and I'm not in favor of that. Giving money away for a number of years.
Other questions or comments? I'll have Taylor take the roll.
Commissioner Flacco. Commissioner Capitan.
Aye.
Commissioner Breitling.
No.
Commissioner Vettel.
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Aye. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, what I'll do is I'll work with Kate real quick then, and we'll change the date in there so that West Fargo can get it for their meeting tonight, so they have that January 1st one in there. I'll let Dustin know as well.
And I believe Kate has also forwarded a copy of the agreement to the city of Fargo as well.
Thank you.
Next up, item 2, Cass County Space Needs Assessment from GLG. Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair.
JLG, not GLG. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you. And I would like to recognize that we have a number of folks from the JLG team here who have been partners in this effort up to this point. And department heads, members of this board will know that this has been I would say, an exhaustive process to get to this point. The JLG group has interviewed, had meetings with the various county departments, with the courts, had conversations with a number of commissioners, really looking at what are our needs over the next 15 years and how best to meet those needs within the courthouse, the annex building, and the RDJ building over that 15-year time frame. The initial report and recommendations came in the form of a draft that was presented at the May 19th Cass County Building Committee meeting, and that was a robust discussion. There were a number of points of feedback at that point, primarily from juvenile courts and the presiding judge. Where they thought there was an opportunity to dig a little deeper on the analysis within the report, and based on that feedback, the JLG folks and myself, you as the commission chair, had some additional meetings, got some additional insight, and then in a couple of cases in pretty quick turnaround, JLG incorporated that into the draft that is presented today for consideration as approval of the final report. We also, at that point, did a bit of an all call out to department heads, giving the managers of each department a chance to look at it and provide feedback. And we did receive a number of comments at that point. All comments were provided on to JLG, and they were aware of all comments as they finalized this report. I think it is really important to recognize that, number one, this is overall space utilization that is planned around what have primarily been the space needs drivers of this conversation for more than a year. And that is, number one, first and foremost, identify a permanent location for our information technology office and get that project underway as soon as possible. Number two, to make the first floor of the annex building more user-friendly and efficient for the offices within the human service zone that have the greatest public traffic coming in and out. And then thirdly, also to create more efficient office space for the state's attorney's office within the annex building. So within those three pillars, I would say the rest of the effort was built around that, receiving and incorporating the needs of other departments. And so this report is a phased concept of how we can accomplish the various needs that were identified through this process. Now, when it's a guide. It does not mean that every one of these steps would be taken exactly as it is presented. As the board, whoever the architect is that's identified to build out these projects that have been identified here, there would be additional assessments and design review that would go into it before anything was actually materialized. And so that for department heads who may feel that there are some areas there that they'd want to have additional conversation before something was acted on, that is absolutely entirely part of any process that we follow. So with that, I would you may wish to recognize our representatives from JLG architect here to speak to the project, or I would be happy to answer any questions you may have for me.
Commissioner Capitan.
Today at our prior meeting, it was pointed out by our county coroner. Is county coroner being looked at in this space needs assessment?
The county coroner's office is absolutely being looked at. The situation there is a bit different from the other offices and the other needs we're looking to account for, primarily because we have existing space in a facility that we utilize that's owned by Fargo Cass Public Health, and we have the opportunity there to use additional space. So we're not in the same position of that is the kind of the core function of this project of how best to utilize these three buildings here. Absolutely, it's a priority. It's something we are, I would say, in parallel tracks working on as we speak. But that's the reason I don't see that one to the same level of detail as other offices.
I would turn to any department heads or any department heads online if they would like to share thoughts regarding their involvement. Okay, I'm looking at the JLG folks, they did a nice job. I don't know if the commission wants to have them come up, provide an overview. You have their information. Very thorough, very accommodating. On the tail end of this with separate meetings, or additional meetings rather, to clarify some of the draft reports. Looking for a motion then, if
Move to receive and file the recommendation of the architect.
Breitling move to receive and file, which meets the acceptance of the space seed study. Is that the proper language?
I think so.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the roll.
Commissioner Breitling,
Yes.
Commissioner Vettel,
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Capitan,
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco.
Thank you. Item 3, emergency manager appointment. Ms. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As all of you are aware, we had a retirement in our emergency management coordinator position in April of this year. Jim Prochniak had retired after almost 10 years of serving Cass County, and so we had some pretty big shoes to fill. We began our search for our new emergency manager in May. Mr. Wilson and I did a preliminary round of interviews and narrowed the field down to 4 finalist candidates. We had a really great pool of candidates, which was a good problem to have. All 4 of them really brought something that the others did not to the interview, and they were all really great candidates. At the end of the day, Commissioner Vettel, Chair Grinberg, and Robert Wilson and myself did the finalist in-person interviews, and we are recommending that the commission appoint Michael Cole Hunter Baker to the emergency manager position. He goes by Cole. But he brings a wealth of knowledge. He has a degree in emergency management. He's worked for FEMA. He's worked for North Dakota DES. He's worked for several organizations that I think will serve him well in this position. He's got a enthusiasm for the job and enthusiasm for public service, and so that's why we're recommending him for the position. So.
Commissioner Vettel, thoughts?
Yeah, I think we did our due diligence to make sure that we found, and I commend our staff for doing the trench work and making sure that we did interview 4 very qualified candidates, and I think through the interview process we were able to determine the best possible candidate, and I certainly feel comfortable recommending Mr. Baker.
Did I hear a motion in that?
Certainly make, unless you have somebody else is commenting. So I'll so move that we offer the employment position of the emergency management to Michael Cole Hunter Baker.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Discussion? Commissioner Capitan?
Is there a reason why you put him up on step 3 of a grade C44?
I think the discussion was just that his education, his experience, where he's at right now, kind of played into our discussion on that, and the committee felt that a step 3 would be an appropriate offer to make to him.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll have Taylor take the roll.
Commissioner Flacco,
Aye.
Commissioner Breitling,
Yes.
Commissioner Vettel,
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Capitan.
Aye.
Tracy?
Thank you.
Item 4, Safety and Emergency Preparedness Committee Charter. Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is a recommendation and a request for consideration that came out of one of our recent department head meetings. And we, leading up to the statewide tornado drill that is part of our routine every spring. I started looking at our history of really having a organization-wide tornado drill in the formal sense that you would anticipate, where every office at the sound of the siren or at the appointed time has an exact area where they are supposed to go shelter and remain until an all clear is sounded and it's clear that any concern has passed and it's safe to return to the office. We have generally a couple of generally recognized safe areas within our county campus that offices have informally directed staff to, but realizing that we do not have that formalized and not as a organization as a whole practice that on an ongoing basis. Obviously, shot to the top of the priority list as an issue that needed to be corrected. And as we were discussing that as the department head group and getting that effort underway, there was a number of different points of input and recommendations that would be the ideal example of something that a safety committee would weigh in on. That, as well as being a liaison back to the departments for other trainings and drills, such as the active shooter, active threat training that the sheriff and his staff put on for offices and external agencies and organizations around the county. And so the conversation grew from the specific to an opportunity that we can really, as an organization, be more responsive and direct back to our individual departments, and also be a way to be more on top of things and improve our situation as the county. So happy to answer any questions, but I would look for your consideration of the motion as it's stated in the memo.
Comments, questions? Your motion? Commissioner Flacco?
Just one technical correction that has been noted. There's a 1, a 2, and a 4, so I would move the recommendation as presented with any technical corrections required.
Second?
Second.
Question? Everybody understand the motion? Hearing none, we'll have Taylor take the roll.
Commissioner Capitan?
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco? Commissioner Breitling?
Yes.
Commissioner Bettel?
Aye.
Item 5, IIJA Cybersecurity Grant Award. Mr. Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As you remember, last month, early this month, we came up here asking for a lot of money, and I would like to get some of that back now. Back in September of 2024, I applied for the State Local Cybersecurity Grant Program, looking for funding for our digital evidence system for our state's attorney. There's been a couple changes at the federal level between now and there, and our award, which usually takes around 90 days, took around 9 months this time. But on the 10th, I am happy to say we received our award funding that project completely for the total value of $147,000 and a couple of bits of change there. This is our 3rd year of our state local cybersecurity grant program, requiring a 30% local match, which comes out to around $44,000. What I'm asking for today is for us to accept this award, which gives us effectively $103,000 at zero implication to us to help fund for our already approved digital modernization program for our state's attorney. We will be responsible for 30% of that being the local match. However, that is still less than the amount we were looking to pay anyways. So If you give them 30 cents, they'll give you 70. I think it's a good deal in my head.
And we're taking our match out of that fund, correct?
Out of the asset forfeiture fund as presented, yes.
Questions?
Move to approve the request.
Moved by Commissioner Breitling, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Capitan. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the roll.
Commissioner Bettel,
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Capitan,
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco.
Aye.
Commissioner Breitling.
Kudos to you, Mr. Henderson,
This
for
is
always
our,
coming through. And State's Attorney Hegvik, excited about finally moving forward with digitization. So,
this,
true impact.
this is our third award through this grant. We're hoping we see the fourth year. We'll see. But so far, Cass County has received nearly $500,000 from this grant alone. So we want to make that, break that $500,000 if we can.
We'll be so efficient in the State's Attorney's office, they won't need to hire anybody else in the future. Oh, did I say that?
That is now on the record.
Okay, we're going to item 6, where we'll reconvene. As I understand, the Board of Equalization and the meeting agenda has been pulled up. So item 1, I've reconvened as chair of the Board of Equalization, and 2, we'll review recommended determinations for 2025 appeals. We'd be looking for a blanket motion unless a commissioner wants to pull one out and have an individual motion. We certainly can accommodate that, but just let me know your wishes. But if there are no individual requests, we'll do a blanket at the end.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. So as was mentioned, we're reconvening the County Board of Equalization in order to make final determinations for properties that are in a pending status from our prior meeting. All property owners at that prior meeting were provided the opportunity to appeal their 2025 assessed values. At this meeting, essentially, we won't be opening the floor to further appeals or public discussions on the pending appeals. This is just our time to basically discuss these determinations if there are any questions, but basically give an overview of them and then make a motion at the end. As you mentioned, we'll be just making one blanket motion for all of the recommendations unless there's a specific one you'd like to change. So as a reminder to both the Board of Equalization and the general public, the determinations made today are going to finalize our portion of the 2025 equalization process. Beyond this, it goes to the state level. Any property owners who appealed to both their local board and the county board may still have their appeals considered by the state board if they are unsatisfied with the county's determination. And if for any property owners who did not appeal to both boards, local and county at this point, if they are still dissatisfied with our determination, they can appeal through, or they can apply for relief through the abatement process. So this isn't the end all be all for the 2025 valuations. If they, have a disagreement that they want to address beyond this, they can go through the abatement process, and we'll work with them on that. Okay, so I am going to give just a brief overview of our appeals that were heard at the last meeting, and then the recommendation essentially being brought before the county. So for Net Right Fargo, let's see. There were several appeals brought for Net Right by Property Tax Resources. To summarize their request for basically all of their properties, their valuations that they provided to us as their recommendation of value were supported very heavily by the income approach to value. We tend to rely more heavily on the sales and cost approaches to value. So that is largely why our valuations differ as significantly as they do. And I could go into, greater detail if you would like, but the consensus from City of Fargo, which I agree with in this case, is that we retain the value as proposed by City of Fargo. Any questions about that one?
Questions? Proceed.
For Sterling Properties LLC, this one was brought by Luke Swenson, who is an employee of Sterling Properties. In their review of this property, City of Fargo found that there was a low-income housing and tax credit restrictive covenant applied against the property, which in City of Fargo's research, they found that these are usually sold at a 25% lesser value. So City of Fargo looked into the math properly on this one and then reduced their value by 25%. This will be a reduction in value to $2,111,000. Any questions regarding that?
Questions on Sterling? Continue.
For Walmart Inc., their appeal was based off of an appraisal that was done by an independent company, and their appeal used some sales from locations as comparable properties that are not necessarily reflective of our market area. City of Fargo breaks that down in their recommendation to the county, but the recommendation from City of Fargo, which I agree with, is to retain the current value.
Questions? Continue.
Thank you. This appeal from APM, there was nobody present at the prior meeting, but this request was submitted prior to the county's meeting and discussing on that Monday. There were 27 parcels listed for appeal. Only 24 of them were actually owned by APM, and no value was requested by the appellant. No documentation was submitted. City of Fargo has data to support their values. We're recommending that we retain the values for each property.
Questions? Continue.
This is quite long. Miss Woodruff was here and appealed her 2025 value for her condo located in Fargo. She provided documentation to support her own sales analysis, where she makes the case that the increase in the price per square foot from last year to this year is too high, which was around 27%. That said, her own documentation that she submitted supported that her property is currently valued equitably in relation to the other properties in her neighborhood. So in this instance, City of Fargo and I recommend that we retain the current value for the property.
Questions? Continue.
And the last appeal that we heard through City of Fargo was for Gary Parsons. He was appealing the 2025 value for his home in Fargo. He did not request a specific value or provide any documentation to support a lower value. City of Fargo provided comparable sales data, and they and I recommend that we retain the current value.
Questions? Okay, continue then to West Fargo.
Yes, so for West Fargo, we had two appeals. The first one for PetSmart, which was presented by Pivotal Tax Solutions. They requested a reduction in value for PetSmart to $2 million. Their analysis and documentation that they provided was based off of 2024 data, so it was already outdated. City of West Fargo provided their own analysis for cost, income, and comparable sales, all of which support their current 2025 assessed value, so we're recommending that we retain the value.
Questions on PetSmart? Please continue.
I already mentioned the net right appeals that were listed at our previous meeting, but this one for the West Fargo property, again, relied very heavily on the income approach to value, which showed a much lower value based off of their numbers, but West Fargo's comparable sales and cost analysis show that the value that we have on the property is equitable. So we're recommending to retain the current value.
Questions? Okay, Horace?
For City of Horace, we had Connor and Devin McGovern. Mr. McGovern was present at the last meeting. Upon review of his property, I determined that the quality factors applied to it were slightly too high, which is largely an issue that stems from a lack of data we have for residential homes of that caliber. We used some data from West Fargo to get some sales comps and comparable analysis for cost. And based off of that information, we are recommending a decrease to a true and full value of $3,498,400.
Questions? And that's a decrease from,
A decrease from $4,145,400.
okay, township appeals.
Howard and Olive Rasmussen Mr. Rasmussen was present to appeal his valuation. He did not request a specific valuation or provide any documentation. Upon review, his property value did increase from 2024 to 25 as a result of an individual assessment completed by the county assessor after his appeal from last year. His valuation increased to $221,700. However, you can see in the documentation I included from the state of North Dakota, who also completed an appraisal last year, it's still under last year's assessed value of the property. So we feel that this value is accurate and equitable, and we're recommending that we retain the current value.
Questions on Mr. Rasmussen? Next, Aaron and Sarah Klinger. Sarah?
For Klingers, this appeal was brought by Mr. Capon, a local assessor. There is a metal shop building on their property that was, I believe, incorrectly priced as a kennel or veterinary structure. It is a pole-built metal building with no concrete floor, so just a dirt floor. I updated the pricing table for it, which reduced the value of the building by $285,300 to a total value of $542,600.
Questions? Last?
And the final one for Greg and Sarah Pfaff, this was an appeal of agricultural values increasing from 2024 to 25. The issue seems to have stemmed from modifiers that were removed from the parcel in our system. I go on to explain in my summary here about how bad drainage modifiers, depending on the parcel that they're on, are essentially being double impacted for the bad drainage issue because the productivity index for these parcels typically already includes that. So when this was removed, it did increase the value, but the value is equitable with other similar agricultural land. So,
Questions?
sorry, we're recommending we retain the value of it.
Okay. No others on the list? Nothing?
That should be it.
Commissioner Capitan?
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the recommendation of the county assessor.
Just do one more check. Does anyone want to pull one off individually? If not, we'll proceed. Okay. Commissioner Capitan moves approval of the presentation report. Is there a second?
Second.
Been seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the roll.
Commissioner Capitan?
Aye.
Commissioner Vettel?
Aye.
Commissioner Breitling?
Yes.
Commissioner Flacco?
Aye.
Commissioner Breitling?
Yes.
I'll vote aye too.
Say Vettel twice. Sorry. Commissioner Gridberg?
I know we kind of look alike, but
Sorry.
I'm much better looking.
yes, much better. You are. Wiser too.
I don't know about that.
Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Next up, we'll have Commissioner Breitling, approval of the vouchers.
I've had an opportunity to look through the list of vouchers that were presented to me. And I found two entries, both dated 6/3/2025. One numbered 350270 and one numbered 350421, both to Consolidated Communications. What drew my interest is that they were both $4,115.43. The information that I have so far is that one of these was never posted, the second one.
So, Commissioner, if I may, I have further info since I last spoke to you.
Okay.
The second option on there, both invoices arrived on the same day due to Consolidated having a billing error on their part. They mailed them both for May and June on the same day. So they were both processed on the same day. The reason they are identical wages but different check numbers is because of our pre-purchase of long distance fees. When we don't go over that, we pay that flat rate. The second check on there, the 241, I believe, or whatever the second one listed as, has not processed because it will not process until you approve vouchers at this meeting.
421, yeah.
Yes, so those are accurate numbers. They are both correct. They just happen to come on the same day because they missed sending us a bill during May. So we received them both on June 3rd.
With that explanation, I would move to approve the bills as presented through the documentation that I've received.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the roll.
Commissioner Brightling,
Yes.
Commissioner Bettel,
Aye.
Commissioner Grinberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Capitan,
Aye.
Commissioner Flacco.
Aye.
8, committee reports. Ms. Hedvick.
You heard enough from me at the rotational meeting today, so I have no further report.
Commissioner Capitan.
Nothing to report.
Flacco.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple things. The Sheriff's Department will be doing incident training for critical situations using the command vehicle and other tactics in the weeks to come. We're making people aware of that. And then secondly, regarding our Pledge of Allegiance, this idea hit me after meeting Mr. Fred Quam, who some of you may know, who passed away not that long ago at the age of 108. He was a World War II veteran, North Dakota National, a guardsman. Air National. Okay. Air Guard. Can't read my own writing. But he and my father were lunchmates at St. Catharines, so I got to know him. But I thought we should consider having, for instance, at the first commission meeting of the month, a person such as himself, Scouts, Eagle Scout, retired military. We have a number of generals in the area lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And maybe it could be such that we rotate and align them with whoever has the vouchers during that time. So it'd be the first time of the year. So essentially within a 2-year period, or within a year period, you'd have to find 2 people as a commissioner to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. So there's something to think about, give feedback to the chair, Robert, but it just seemed like that would be a nice way to honor and begin our meeting with some of those highly respected individuals. And I just gave you a short list. I mean, everybody will have, each commissioner might have their own person that they would be interested in having lead us in the pledge. So that's all.
Great suggestion. Ms. Madriga.
No report, thank you.
Wilson.
Only report I have is that because of the way the calendar falls this month, we will go 3 weeks between meetings this time instead of the normal 2. And then based on your actions earlier this afternoon on the West Fargo inmate housing agreement, I plan to be over at the West Fargo City Commission meeting later this evening and be available for any questions or comments that they may have as they consider the same agreement. That concludes my report.
Commissioner Brightling.
No report.
Commissioner Vettel. None. I just have 2 items. One, should have received an invitation for a brown bag lunch. Forget the date, Taylor. Next Thursday, with the economic development professionals to,
26th at 11:30.
yep, here. Roundtable discussion on incentives, and in particular, from, at least from my view, understanding of practice of using incentives that we've made decisions on here in the past, maybe a distinction between housing and traditional economic development, just to have an open discussion so that I think it'd be a good educational tool for all of us to hear from our leaders out in the ranks as we head into our budget period in July. It would be helpful to understand. And I think Brandy pulled some information a while ago that had if there were no exemptions in place right now, that would net $1.5 million to the county, if I'm not mistaken, give or take. I'm personally not advocating for any specific changes at this point, but I just think it's a good discussion for us to have as we define this new normal with our budgetary challenges and our partners at the state. The second is this morning, Innovate 28 Advisory Committee met, and I shared with the Chamber at EDC that their budget hearing would be on Friday, July 25th, the only hearing that morning. We're working on that schedule. It'll be out, if it's not already out, and shared with them that we'll be pulling together a list of questions and thoughts from the entire commission. So in particular, if you have some questions or requests, please get those to Robert so we can pull those together and provide that under a listing under the 3 pillars that Innovate 28 campaign is now underway with. And so if you have thoughts and things you want to know, please get those to Robert. I shared this morning that we'd be providing that to the advisory board for Innovate 28, which is business and industry, as well as the execs for the 2 organizations, right around the time of 4th of July, right before that. So they'll have that for all practical purposes a month in advance to prepare for. Correspondence.
No correspondence.
Motion to adjourn. Seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned.